So anybody that's modified a motorcycle and modified it a lot, they probably have some regret. So today I'm going to talk about the DR650. So I have researched the top 7 regrets of DR650 owners in places like Reddit, AdventureWriter.com, and drwriters.com. And the goal is to keep more cash in our pockets and have less regret in our motorcycling lives. Let's leave the regret where it should be, with the KLR riders, am I right? And before I hop on the bike and get going, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helped me out. Thanks. All right, let's start with regret number 1. And this one, y'all, it really surprised me. I don't have my gas on. Now I do. The DR250 taillight. Now, I know some of y'all are like, what? This is a DR650 video, and it is. But one of the most common modifications aesthetically to the DR650 is swapping out that big school bus looking taillight with a taillight from a DR250. And I don't know what it was, y'all. In the 90s, as time moved on, Suzuki made their taillights uglier and uglier. But the DR250 taillight's this really tidy looking little thing, and it's sitting on the back of the bike. And lo and behold, you could just swap it out. You could take off the DR650 taillight and put on the DR250 taillight. It's a real simple job. It does cost way more than it should, but I did it. And I'm really happy with it. The thing that a lot of y'all complain about with the DR250 taillight is it's not bright enough. Okay, look, it was bright enough back in the 1980s when the DR250 was out, and I admit brighter would be better. But I just checked mine out, and I regret not having looked at it before, but it seems fine to me. I don't really see a problem with it. I mean, would I like it to be brighter and more strobe-like? Absolutely, because, you know, visibility is your friend when it comes to getting somebody's attention that's about to run you over. But frankly, I don't see what all the hubbub is about. Your mileage may vary, but I don't share this regret. Regret number 2 is this oil cooler guard I have down here on the right of the DR650. Look, it looks awesome, and it does give the DR that sort of utilitarian chic look, doesn't it? And it does, truthfully, protect the oil cooler from any stray rocks that are thrown up from a riding friend in front of you. But look, y'all, if you've got a riding buddy on the trail that's spewing you with rocks and debris, maybe don't follow him so close. Or maybe get a different buddy, because I don't know about you, but I don't want to be covered with crap when I get home. And I don't want my expensive visor all beat up. But I'm an adventure rider, not really a true trail rider, if you will. So I'm not really in there trying to race somebody. And perhaps that's where the original idea for this oil cooler guard came from. If I was going to do it over again, I'd skip the oil cooler guard completely. And I'd just carry a bit of hose and some clamps to bypass the thing to get me home should I get a hole in it. So this next one really surprised me in the fact that there were so many people that didn't like their aftermarket slip-ons for the DR650. And I'm running the Yoshimura pipe back there in the back, and it came on the bike when I bought it. Yes, the Yoshimura pipe that I have and other slip-ons as well, they all save weight and they all provide more flow, which gives the DR650 a little bit more power. But they're really loud, and after a while that gets really annoying. The other thing is they constantly do the D-cell pop thing, which I'm not the biggest fan of. It's fun at first, but then as you realize that you're 50 years old or 40 years old and you're not a kid anymore, it kind of loses its novelty. If I had bought this bike with the factory muffler on it, I probably would have kept it that way. Or maybe I would have tracked down one of the GSXR mufflers from the early aughts in the mid pipe adapter kit so I could get more flow but less noise in the process. So the number 4 regret that I have, as well as other writers in the forums, is getting rid of the factory parts, which is kind of related to what I just talked about. If you have the factory takeoffs from the modifications that you've done, maybe hold on to them for a little bit. There have been many times where I have taken off a part for that must-have modification and then realized like 3 months later that the must-have modification wasn't really all that must-have after all. And sometimes it's inferior to the part that I took off. If I still had the factory part, I could just put it back on, but a lot of times, just to save space, I've cleared that part out, or I've sold it on Facebook Marketplace at a crazy discount, and then I end up buying the stupid thing again. And y'all, that sucks. Alright, the number 5 regret that a lot of people have when modifying the DR650 is messing around with the factory BST40 carburetor. Look, we all want this carburetor to squirt more gas better, and everybody, if you ask them, probably wants more power. But Suzuki's done a really solid job at tuning that carburetor from the factory. This is especially true if you live somewhere in the world other than the United States, because you guys get the beloved tapered needle that we don't have here stateside. Look, when I released my video about fixing the BST40 carburetor on my DR650, I was overwhelmed at the response that I've gotten in the comments. There are so many people around the world that have screwed around with their BST40 carb and not been happy with the results. They have surging issues, stalling issues, stumbling issues, and what makes it even worse is that one of the things you're supposed to do when modifying the carb is to cut your factory airbox. And guess what? A new airbox is like $500. I don't remember the exact amount, but it's a whole heck of a lot of money. And who wants to have a bike with a airbox they've taped something up on top of just to plug the hole that they made trying to make their carburetor better? Look, if you ask me, and you're probably a little bit interested since you're watching this video, if you want pumper carb-like performance, just buy a TM40. I know they cost a lot of money, but it's actually cheaper than all the time that you're going to spend with fixing the mistakes you made to the BST40 carb and repairing your factory airbox. The number 6 biggest regret that people have with the DR650 when making modifications is putting a windscreen on the DR650. This bike is obviously a naked bike in the sense that it has no active aero on the bike, which means all the wind just blows across this area onto your chest, your arms, your legs. And it's really smooth wind, but it's unfettered. You get the full brunt of the wind. And for me, within the operating parameters of this bike, and that would be 0 to say 70 miles an hour where it's happy, that's not really a big stinking deal, y'all. What is a big deal to me is having that wind come up off of a windscreen and blow straight into my head. Look, I don't think you can create a truly like wind tunnel tuned experience on a bike like this from a third party that doesn't have a very big budget. And having that wind or that air pressure focused on your helmet is going to give you a lot of neck fatigue and lead to headaches and God only knows what else. Personally, it's a naked bike. I'd rather leave it that way and just ride at a reasonable speed and enjoy the day. All right, the number 7 biggest regret that people have when modifying their DR650s is installing one of those fancy black anodized chain guides on the swing arm. Now, y'all, those things look super sick. And when you read about them, they sound like a really good idea. I mean, it's going to protect your bike's chain and your swing arm better than the Suzuki factory plastic part can. However, I have heard two major complaints with those aftermarket chain guards, or guides, sorry. The first complaint is they can be noisy. I'm supposing that's because the metal chain is rattling around against a metal chain guard. The second problem with those metal chain guides is that you can get some metal shavings from the guide in the chain, and that doesn't sound like a great idea to me. Look, I haven't had this bike long enough to know how long the chain should last, but I'm guessing it should be over 15,000 miles, and having metal shavings in the chain, probably not a great idea. Alright, as I mentioned earlier, my research about DR650 modification regret was a bit limited and unscientific. So if you've made a modification that you regret to your DR650 and it wasn't on my list, go ahead and drop a comment. Let me know what the modification was and what it was about the modification that didn't meet your expectation. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching.